History remembers the headlines. We find the bylines. This is the unsung. The Cold War is often remembered as a distant, almost abstract conflict of superpowers, of clashing ideologies, and of famous world leaders staring each other down across a divided world. We tell ourselves the story of mutually assured destruction, that no one would ever launch first because it guaranteed their own annihilation. It's a comforting myth, suggesting a rational, if terrifying, stability. But on September 26, 1983, that myth was nearly shattered. The world wasn't brought to the brink by a president or a premier, but by a computer glitch. And the only person standing between that fatal error and the end of the world was a 44-year-old Lieutenant Colonel named Stanislav Petrov, sitting alone in a secret bunker outside Moscow. So how was the man who single-handedly prevented World War III erased from the story for decades? The year 1983 was one of the most dangerous periods of the entire Cold War. Tensions were at a fever pitch. In the United States, President Ronald Reagan had recently labeled the Soviet Union an evil empire and announced the Strategic Defense Initiative, a space-based missile shield that the Soviets saw as a direct threat to the nuclear balance. Just 3 weeks before Petrov's fateful night, a Soviet fighter jet shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007, a civilian airliner that had strayed into Soviet airspace, killing all 269 people aboard, including a U.S. congressman. The incident provoked global outrage. NATO was also conducting a massive military exercise called Able Archer 83, which simulated a coordinated nuclear attack. The Soviets, deeply paranoid, believed this exercise might be a cover for a real first strike. The world was a tinderbox, and the Soviet military was on high alert, its finger nervously twitching on the trigger. This is the world where we find Stanislav Petrov. He was not a high-ranking general or a political figure with a seat in the Kremlin. He was a mid-level officer in the Soviet Air Defense Forces, trained as an engineer. His job wasn't about strategy or geopolitics. It was about data. His expertise was in the complex circuitry and software of the OKO early warning satellite system, a brand-new billion-ruble technological marvel designed to be the USSR's unblinking eye in the sky. On that fateful night, he was the duty officer at Serpukhov 15, the top-secret command center buried deep in a forest outside Moscow. His role was procedural, almost robotic. Monitor the alerts from the OKO system, and if an attack was detected, report it up the chain of command without question. He was supposed to be a cog in the vast, rigid machine of Soviet military protocol, a machine designed specifically to remove human hesitation from the launch sequence. But his proximity to power was terrifyingly direct. A report from him would go straight to the General Staff, who would then inform Soviet leader Yuri Andropov. From there, the decision to launch a counterattack would be made in minutes. Petrov was the first and most critical link in the chain that could begin the end of the world. The pivotal moment arrived just after midnight, at 12:15 Moscow time. Petrov had just settled into his shift. The bunker was quiet, filled with the low hum of computers. Suddenly, the silence was shattered. A blood-red screen flashed with a single terrifying word: launch. A deafening siren blared through the command center. The system was reporting that a single nuclear missile had been launched from a base in the United States and was heading toward the Soviet Union. His subordinates stared at him, their faces pale with shock. Before anyone could even process the first alert, another appeared, then a third, a fourth, and a fifth. The system now showed 5 Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missiles screaming toward them. The electronic map of the incoming attack path was lit up. The computer's assessment was unequivocal. Nuclear attack, highest confidence level. According to protocol, Petrov had roughly 15 minutes to verify the threat before the first warheads would begin to detonate on Soviet soil. The pressure was unimaginable. The fate of hundreds of millions rested on his next move. His training, his orders, and the panicked faces of his staff all demanded one thing: pick up the direct line to his superiors and confirm the attack. But Petrov didn't. He paused. Something felt wrong. This is where the engineer in him clashed with the soldier. His gut screamed that it was a false alarm, and his technical mind started racing to find the evidence. First, the nature of the attack. A nuclear first strike from the United States, designed to cripple the Soviet Union's ability to retaliate, would be overwhelming. It would involve not 5 missiles, but hundreds, maybe thousands, launched from land, sea, and air to saturate their defenses. An attack of only 5 missiles made no military sense. It was, as he later put it, a ridiculously small opening salvo. Second, he cross-referenced the data. He knew the satellite system was just one part of the warning network. The other was ground-based radar. He called the radar operators, who would need several more minutes to pick up missiles once they cleared the horizon. Their screens were blank. No corroborating evidence, nothing. Third, and perhaps most critically, he analyzed how the OCO system itself was reporting the threat. He noted that all 5 alerts were coming from a single satellite, all originating from the same location. If it were a genuine large-scale launch, multiple satellites should have detected it from different angles. It seemed more likely that this one satellite was malfunctioning. He was betting against a state-of-the-art system he was tasked to trust implicitly. Against the blaring sirens and the mounting panic in the room, he made his decision. Petrov picked up the direct line to the duty officer at the Soviet High Command. His heart was pounding. Everyone in the bunker held their breath. Instead of reporting a missile attack, he delivered a different message, his voice steady despite the immense strain. He reported that the system was malfunctioning. He broke every rule in the book, gambling his career, his freedom, and the fate of his country on a hunch backed by logic. For agonizingly long minutes, the bunker remained on the highest alert. Petrov and his team could only wait, watching the silent radar screens, hoping his judgment was correct. Finally, the window passed. The missiles, had they been real, would have arrived. The skies remained empty. The attack never came. Later, investigations confirmed his theory. The satellite S sensors had mistaken the reflection of sunlight off high-altitude clouds for the engine flare of a missile launch. Petrov's role was absolutely essential. The Soviet system at the time was semi-automated and primed for a hair-trigger response. A report from him confirming an attack would have almost certainly set in motion a retaliatory launch from the USSR. The United States would have detected that launch and fired back its own arsenal. It would have been a full-scale, civilization-ending nuclear exchange. Petrov's technical skepticism and his profound human judgment were the only circuit breakers in a machine built for automatic war. He was the ghost in the machine, who chose not to become a ghost. So why isn't Stanislav Petrov, a household name, celebrated as a global hero? His name was erased by a combination of state secrecy and bureaucratic self-preservation. The Soviet military could never publicly admit that it's prized. Billion-ruble early warning system had malfunctioned so catastrophically that it nearly caused Armageddon. Acknowledging Petrov's heroism would have been a direct admission of catastrophic system failure, a source of immense embarrassment and a sign of weakness to their Cold War adversary. The mechanism of his erasure was insidious and quiet. He wasn't court-martialed for disobeying orders, as that would create a paper trail. Instead, he was officially reprimanded for improper filing of the logbook during the incident. He was a hero who had saved the world, and his reward was a slap on the wrist for a clerical error. His career was effectively over. He was sidelined, passed over for promotion, and eventually took early retirement. He was given a small pension and left to live in obscurity in a small apartment in a town outside Moscow. The incident itself was buried deep within classified Soviet military files. It remained an open secret among a handful of high-ranking officials. But to the world, and even to most of his own country, it simply never happened. The story only began to surface over a decade later, after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Petrov's former commander published his memoirs in the late 1990s and mentioned the incident. Journalists, intrigued by this incredible claim, tracked Petrov down. Slowly, the modern reckoning began. He received several international peace awards from Western organizations and was the subject of a documentary titled The Man Who Saved the World. Yet, even with this newfound fame, he remained a humble pensioner in Russia, his health failing. His heroic act was never officially recognized or honored by his own country before his death in 2017. Stanislav Petrov's legacy is a powerful and urgent argument for the necessity of human judgment in our increasingly automated systems. In an age of artificial intelligence, autonomous weapons, and algorithmic decision-making, his story is a timeless and chilling warning. We must always design our systems to allow for a human to say no. History is full of these hidden moments, these critical decisions made by people whose names we may never know. Who else, in the chain of command of any country, has made a choice that silently changed the course of history? If you know a story like this, share it in the comments below. And for more stories of the forgotten figures who shaped our world, make sure to subscribe to the Unsung. Thanks for watching.